Chapter 17. Zach had been watching for them all morning, not sure when they would arrive, and both dreading and impatient for that moment. He loved the idea of spending time with them, but at the same time, it terrified him. What if Mark didn't like it on the lake? What if he got seasick? No, it wasn't the ocean, but that didn't matter to a person's stomach. He checked his bag for the third time, making sure he had the motion sickness medication, extra sunscreen, and anything else they might need. What if Mark didn't like him? What if Dani decided this was a waste of time, and wouldn't bring him back? What if she hadn't felt the same draw Zach had when he'd kissed her a few days before? Doubts had been plaguing him since the night before, and because of them he'd not slept well. He'd gotten up early and made sandwiches, turkey and peanut butter and jelly, because he didn't know what Mark might like, and packed them, water, and some snacks for the day. He'd loaded almost everything onto the boat he'd borrowed from David, as David's boat was a little roomier and a lot newer than his parents' boat. Then all he had left to do was worry. He'd tried distracting himself with a game on his phone, but found he kept losing because of his preoccupation, and gave up. The crunch of gravel alerted him of their arrival. Zach stood and looked around, trying not to seem too eager by being seen waiting by the door as he scanned the room for anything that needed doing, but he found nothing. A knock sounded on the door. Zach jumped even though he'd been expecting it, then shook his head. He took a deep breath, then let it out slowly as he tried to relax, at least a little, before opening the door. Dani stood on the doorstep in a pair of shorts, a tank top, and the straps of a bikini wrapping around her neck beneath her top. Her hair was pulled up into a messy knot on top of her head, and a flush colored her cheeks, much like the other night after he'd kissed her. Zach's mouth watered to see what she looked like without her street clothes, and he stared at her a little longer than he should have, unable to speak. "Hi. Are we ready to go out on the lake?" Mark's voice drew his attention. Zach looked down at his miniature and found him almost vibrating with excitement. "Just about. We've got a couple of things to do first. You have all your things? Your trunks, sunscreen, a towel, that kind of stuff?" "I do. I even brought a couple snacks." Mark lifted a large beach-style bag off one shoulder to show it off, then put it back on his shoulder. "Great. I've got some other stuff packed, even some sandwiches." That's when it occurred to him. He looked up at Dani. "Does he have any allergies?" "Nothing food-related." She shook her head. That made Zach frown. "Medications?" "Not that we've found, but he's a pretty healthy little monster, so he's not needed many." She roughly rubbed her son's head. Now Zach was really confused. If he wasn't allergic to food or medicine, what else was left? His face must have relayed his thoughts. "The only thing we found is one brand of body wash. It leaves a rash." "Oh." He fell silent a moment. "It wouldn't happen to be Old Spice, would it?" "How did you know?" "Just a guess." Now Dani was frowning. He mouthed later to her, then glanced down at Mark. "I made some sandwiches earlier, but I wasn't sure what kind you would like, so I made turkey and peanut butter. I hope you like those." "Turkey is okay. But only like grape jelly." "Then you're in luck. Grape is my favorite." "Hoo-hoo. Come this way." He led them through the house and out the back door and onto his deck. "And we'll get things ready to head out." "What do we need?" Mark asked. "Set your bag down a minute," Zach said once they reached the back porch. "We need to figure out which one of these fits best." He had a stack of life vests in different sizes stacked on the patio table waiting for them. He eyed the boy and pulled one out. "Here, try this one first." He had to show Mark how to put it on, clip the straps, and tighten them. Zach looked at it and tugged at the shoulders. "Nope, that's too big," he said, when the shoulders lifted nearly to the top of the boy's head. They tried on 2 more before Zach was satisfied with the way one fit. "What do you think, Mom?" He turned to get Dani's opinion. "I'm glad you thought of it, because I totally forgot. But you know more about how they should fit than I do." Zach nodded once, then turned back to Mark. "You wear that one. Keep it on any time we're near or around the boat." "Ah. But I can swim. Why do I have to wear it?" "Because the water's cold, and the surprise of it can make you forget how to swim for a few seconds. That few seconds is all it will take. Besides, those are the rules of the boat. Everyone under 18 wears a jacket." "How come you don't have to?" Mark wanted to know. "For starters, I'm not under 18. I'm also used to how cold the lake is. I've been in and out of it for years." "What about Mom? Does she have to wear one?" "That will be up to her. I know how well she swims, and I'm not going to require it." Mark's face turned cloudy, but he didn't argue anymore. "Come on, let's get your things onto the boat and head out." Mark turned and motioned for Dani to go up the dock in front of him. He didn't wait to see if Mark picked up his bag and followed. The rustle of the bag and the soft slide of the boy's water shoes told him instead. "All right, let me step on board and then I'll help you both on." "I can do it," Mark said, excited. "Hold on." Dani caught his arm and kept him beside her. "Wait until Zach says." Zach stepped on board and turned around. "All right," he said. "Mark, you come first." Mark stepped onto the boat without hesitation, then, once both feet were on the boat, wobbled, as he hadn't been expecting the boat to move under him. Zach caught him and set him back upright. "See, that's why I wanted you to wait. It takes practice. Hold on and have a seat over there." He pointed to seats near the rear of the craft and turned back to where Dani stood waiting. She kept an eye on Mark as though making sure he did as he was told, then turned back to Zach with a small smile. "You can do it on your own if you want, but I'm staying here just in case." "Nope. I know better. It's been a long time and I'm out of practice." She held out one hand. Zach's heart raced just a bit as he took it long enough to help her on board, then released her, his eyes lingering on her face just a moment longer than they should have. She stood looking up at him just as long. He hoped that meant she wasn't regretting the kiss the other night, but now wasn't the time to ask. She held on to the back of a nearby seat as she moved to sit near Mark. "All right." He turned to face them. "Are we about ready to cast off?" "Any time you are," Dani said. "We have everything?" He double-checked that the cooler was still where he'd left it, then looked at Dani. "I do." "All right, then let's be off." He stepped off the boat, undid the line that held them to the dock, and stepped back onto the boat before it had drifted more than a few inches. He stepped behind the wheel, started the engine, and they were off.